Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Christian Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Ravi and Ed, co-founders of Steez. To get started, Ravi and Ed, would you mind sharing a quick intro about yourselves and Steez?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Ravi, co-founder and CEO of Steez. So I was an ex-music manager. I actually met Ed at university, and from uni we've been building Steez for about 3 to 4 years now.
Hey, my name is Ed. I'm the founder and CEO of Steez. Like Ravi said, we met at uni. I used to be a music producer, I used to be a music manager. And yeah, we've been trying to change how the industry works.
Amazing. And, cool that you guys met at university as well. It's always, I think, great to see when folks have like some kind of background or history of knowing or spending time with each other. Not to say there's anything wrong with the co-founder dating scene, like that can work out as well, but usually helps when you have some kind of like personal connection embedded
Yeah,
there.
real friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we got really lucky on there as well. Just the way we did as well.
I mean, he arrived late on the cohort, and he was put in my group, and we didn't leave each other all the way until the end of the uni. And Ravi and I actually were working together. He was my manager as a producer, so we actually got to know each other as friends and through work and through studies before we started Steez. So it was quite helpful.
Yeah, amazing. And what, for both of you, like what made you want to take the leap to become a founder? What's kind of like the background and origin story there?
I mean, for me personally, I think I've been a very creative person my whole life. And I think for me, just business as a whole felt like a solution to not have to pick what industry. When I was young, I wanted to be a mangaka. I wanted to write mangas. I wanted to be a graphic designer. I wanted to do music. I wanted to do drawing. And so business actually really helped being the place where I can just actually manage a business and then change industries. And music just took me over, and I haven't looked back since. And trying to change the industry from the initial frustration of having studied the industry as a producer and realizing how deeply flawed and broken the industry is, whether you're at the smaller level or the highest levels. It felt like the only way to actually have a bit of a like put a dent in the problem and actually try and find a proper solution,
Yeah, I think for me as well, growing up, my family have always been in businesses. So it's like a life I just kind of always saw. I think it was the freedom was a big thing I kind of saw with them compared to like my uncles and stuff like that. And then when it comes to music itself, like Ed, I've always been a creative person. I was actually a founder of a YouTube organization back in the day when I was like a little kid. And I've always been in the creative spaces. My friends, they've always done music. So really, I think with me, it's always been about helping people. Even music management, I kind of went into it because my friends needed help kind of progress their careers. So I kind of just took a role that I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I was helping them. And I think with what we're building, I think we're going to change a lot of people's lives. So I'm always motivated by that.
Yeah, amazing. And, you both have this intrinsic motivation and interest on the music side. I think maybe for artists today, what do you see as some of their like big pain points for getting and sustaining some kind of career off the ground? Because it's, not uncommon for that starving artist mantra to be placed on many musicians today, because it's tough to get things going. Like, what do you see as some of the bigger pain points for artists today?
Yes. So I think if you're not in the industry, you kind of see artists as making money because you just see the mainstream artist, where there's thousands and thousands of artists that are actually really, like you said, starving, and they kind of got it kind of goes unseen. I think the stat out there is about the top 1% of artists actually make 80% of music industry revenue. So that's all from the streaming, obviously the sales of vinyl, whatever it is, touring. So we really want to create a more equitable system. And that's where kind of Steez came in. And we kind of saw that as a way to kind of push out a way for people to chase scale and chase more meaningful relationships with their fans.
Yeah, I think to stack on that, I think, artists struggle with, obviously the making of the art is never easy. And I think you initially need a lot of funding. People don't realize that, but buying instruments, buying production equipment, buying the speakers that actually show you how good or bad the music is, that already is initial cost that a lot of people can't afford. I think education is a big problem. And there's obviously musical education, but there's also legal and financial literacy that are important, especially when you start talking about getting that funding, when you talk about whether it's a loan or an advance from a record label, a bank, or whatever it is. And I think obviously everyone already today is interacting with algorithms. Everyone's using a TikTok or an Instagram or YouTube. The reality of being on the other side, posting that content, is that you're consistently fighting the algorithm. The algorithm changes regularly. Trends change regularly. What people expect changes a lot. But then as well, there's the fact that it often feels, even when at the time when I was posting a lot for my own career, it felt like I was fighting to resecure my already existing followers, because the algorithms don't necessarily show what you post to everyone who already supports you and already has a stake in the game. So you consistently are fighting all of those different forces, whether it's financial, cultural, technological, and it's really a struggle. And I think that's why we're seeing so many artists who are literally having to pick up 2 jobs. I think in the UK, the stat is I think 60% of creators require 2 jobs to make ends meet at the end of the month. So yeah, it's not an easy one.
And I think just to add on that as well, I think a big issue me and Ed did see really early on is the mental health stress these artists go through. Posting constantly, having to always give fans what they want. It's a hard pressure to put on yourselves, and it really burns them out. And we think that's where creativity has gone down. It's not more about what you love making. It's now more about what will now trend, what will now go mainstream, what will now get me views, which is another thing that is really sad, especially if you are a creator. You kind of know that it's kind of depressing creating stuff that you don't really love.
Yeah, and that content grind is real. I mean, it's just so much from everyone pushing out all the time. And to your point, artists aren't by trade, probably maybe some are interested, but some less interested in like the pure self-promotion piece that content creation provides. They want their work to speak for them, but it's hard for their work to get noticed when there's thousands upon millions of other people constantly sharing content about themselves.
It's like they've been forced a lot of jobs just by being artists. They got to now be marketing. They're now going to be financial. They have to understand their finances. They can't just be an artist anymore. And I feel like they don't really know that. It's like a startup, really. They got to see themselves like a business, which they don't really do.
They don't have the awareness. I think there's not enough education out there, or like there's no tutorial of becoming an artist. And a lot of the resources that exist out there, you actually have to know which ones exist to go and look them up. Like, for example, I'm very adamant on the Academy of YouTube, right? I think there's so many resources out there. You can learn about everything and anything. But even just looking into how the music industry works from a financial standpoint, like from royalties, distribution, advances with record labels, how you would have to fund a tour, how would you have to fund a project, all of those things exist out there, but they don't, like, you start making music, that doesn't arrive to the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't care, really. So you have to be aware of it, and the awareness often comes at the cost of being burnt. You got burnt on one project where you didn't get the marketing you wanted. You got burnt on a record deal where you're stuck for 2-3 years and the terms are really against you. And it's only after those things kind of happen, and a lot of people just give up at that point, right? So you have to then be really resilient enough to want to keep on going on, and to then have that kind of like awareness of, okay, now I fucked up here and there. Sorry if I can't swear, but I messed up here enough to want to get better at it. Let me look it up. And then you start educating yourself. And that happens again and again consistently until you're good at all of the hats you have to wear, And
it doesn't just happen to the small artists. The big artists also stuck in these deals that they didn't know what they were signing. For example, you're seeing Drake releasing 3 albums trying to get out his deal, but it seems like there's some certain terms in his contract that he didn't really look into, which he's still being stuck into.
Yeah. I mean, the big labels have teams and teams of lawyers. These things are not written to be unfair to them at the end of the day. It's definitely need to be. I mean, you can be savvy and have your own people, but also at the end of the day, just know, like, it's one way or the other, it's going to be a bit more favorable for them ultimately.
Yeah, I do think, funnily enough, because we always talk about AI, but I think people don't talk enough about how AI does help the small people like that. And I think when it comes to those legal contracts, when it comes to like financing, when it comes to having the awareness of the things that are, easy to miss or have been built to be easy to miss, I think it does become quite useful to be able to just give your contract to a Claude, a ChatGPT, and ask it, hey, is there anything unfair in here? No, we ourselves as small business have worked or tried to work with certain people. I would not name anyone, but we've tried to work with certain people, and I'm talking more businesses than individuals, right? But we have had to put contracts into AI, and then to turn out the AI coming back and saying, hey, by the way, this actually means this, and this is going to be dangerous for you this way. And when you're done with the deal in 2 years, this is what it actually means for the continuation of, the relationship or anything you've sacrificed in the process. So yeah, I do think that we'll slowly, hopefully, get that gap between people who have the education and the funding and people who do not. That gap will hopefully decrease a little bit through those tools and through more people putting out education, I hope things do get better, and I hope we actually can put a dent into it ourselves on our side of the plane.
Absolutely. And maybe that's a good segue into where you're sitting with Steez, and share a bit more in terms of how you're helping artists, where you kind of sit in that stack of tools that they might use or platforms that they might use. What's kind of the core use case that you're looking for with artists?
So we're really looking to build exclusive fan communities. And we kind of got this on the back basis of the 1,000 True Fans theory based on Kevin Kelly. He was basically analyzing creators and saying, you can actually make more money from 1,000 true fans than 1 million passive fans. And it really got us thinking about how the industry currently works. The reason the top 1% win is because they're fed all the fans, and the fans are not redistributed equitably or equally. So if we create a platform where we can limit the amount of fans that can access a certain community, then the fans can spread, and the whole industry now becomes based on value rather than volume. And that value can always be regenerated. And that's one thing that we're really keen on. Ed can touch more about the technical side of it, though.
Yeah. So I think perfectly said. I think the important part is, like we said earlier, you have to spread quite thin as an artist, right? And so for us, obviously, the making of the music itself is not something that we're tackling. There's enough tools out there. Production systems are very advanced. I don't really think they need help. But I think everything that happens after that is important. And those are things that we're trying to tackle. So we're tackling exposure and trying to get you new fans. That's something that will get better over time as we have more users. We're trying to tackle community and actually interacting with the people who you deem as fans and who want to support you actively. We're trying to tackle consumption. So in the sense where when you do have fans, having a direct access to them so that they can see the new stuff that you're posting, seeing the new projects, seeing exclusive, seeing the behind the scenes, actually keeping them, closely knitted in the process of whatever next project you're working on. And the fourth is monetization. We've talked about the financing and the struggles. So obviously it's trying to create technically we're creating a new revenue stream for the music industry, which is out of unlocking those Steez tokens. And so the idea is those keys is the idea that you want to have a scarce, just like Ravi said, a scarce access to an artist, which then unlocks a community and exclusive content and a bunch of perks that the creator is willing to give. It could be like having a call every weekend. It could be playing video games at the end of the month. It could be having access to the stems of a song to be able to remix them, whatever artists want to give out. And so that creates a way for people to be incentivized to support artists in a way that actually comes at a higher impact on the artist's ability to make a living. So we're talking £30 starting price per Steez, 500 Steez per creator starting. There's going to be more coming out over time. So every year there'll be a bunch of new releases per the artist's own initial, deployment time. And the idea is that an artist should be able to make nearly minimum wage just off of Steez, right? And when you look at how they already rely on other revenue streams, that means that with streaming, with merchandise, which are things that we are hoping to at some point also support and implement, not necessarily streaming, but merchandise, ticket, concerts, vinyl, clothing, whatever, even beat selling. Those are things that we were trying to build onto in the future. But the goal is that it's supposed to be a one home, one place platform where you post, share, interact, and monetize without having to spread yourself thin. And we're also working on a post scheduler, which means that then you would be able to post on Steez, and your post would be then posted all over the place. So then you don't have to start spending a quarter of your week basically posting once on TikTok, then posting once on Instagram, then posting once on YouTube, and then the next day you do it again, and then the next day you do it again, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So it's all contained there right now, but in the future, spread it out to other platforms as well. And
Yeah,
I think it's a great point around, like, for artists, you can monetize. I'll just call them super fans for ease, but like monetize those super fans as opposed to trying to go like big more mainstream audience early, where it's probably less attainable unless you have some kind of great exposure or distribution hack that maybe gets you there.
Yeah. I think also the things that when you try to understand the industry, and while we got to a point where we rely so much on millions and millions, right? The industry didn't always work that way. People could make a living from art making with thousands of fans back in the days, right? Especially because digital didn't exist, so you would sell actually expensive goods. And so the internationalization of the industry has meant that record labels, especially in DSPs, you know, the streaming services, generally want to be able to make as much as they can from subscriptions, from, you know, those kind of like per capita, per unit of people entering. And so the industry is inclined towards this kind of like mass consumption system, which the whole rest of the world does as well. And we generally don't abide by that, because the truth is that, firstly, when you see, and I think everyone can relate to this, you have an artist who you really love and they're not huge yet, but you know they're going to get there. Firstly, there's a feeling of wanting to be part of that journey, which is what we tap into very early on. Like, it's supposed to be able to create a place, a space where you can interact with an artist and feel like you're actually participating in their journey, right? And have intimacy in their relationship, right? Being able to have calls and see what they're doing behind the scenes and interact with them, potentially even give you opinion and have that opinion like apply to what they're changing. But it's also like the whole growth of it. The oftentimes, and I'm huge on trying to find small artists. They change. The problem is that like they then try and make a sound that appeals to more people. Their record label is pushing them to make a sound that is more appealing to the masses, or even change the look, change their voice as an artist, change the subject matter what they discuss, you know, trying to appeal to the masses. And I think that, I wouldn't say it ruins artists, but I think it ruins definitely the relationship that they have with the initial people who are there to support them. And I think that obviously as a business decision, that makes sense when that is the only way for you to make a living, right? Which is how the industry currently is built. So I'm not necessarily like criticizing that, but there is a flaw in the fact that that is how you have to make money. And that's where we're also tackling the problem at the root. The ability to make money from smaller amount of people means that then you don't have to sell yourself out.
I think also to add on as well is the way we built the mechanics of Steez. So if you look at the social media industry currently and the way artists operate on that, they'll only release on social media when they have a song coming out. And it's not their fault, they're just marketing themselves, right? But for the fan side, the people that actually love them, they kind of create that close connection with them, and they're not getting that enough content because artists don't see social media as a big monetization layer, which they need to constantly be posting on. So the way we done it, because the keys are basically tradable. So as the community grows, so does the keys. But the community can only grow as much as the artist is involved. So by the artist being more involved in this community, by communicating, posting more content, doing whatever they really want, it's their own world, it kind of increases their ability to monetize themselves better. So it's a big thing.
It feeds into itself.
Yeah, more activity gives them a chance to grow the community more. There's definitely, and maybe because I'm more familiar with this side, there's some, like, I think probably emotional pull that end users who are supporting artists would feel similarly. Like maybe a parallel would be like a Kickstarter or some kind of platform for like an angel investment, like Republic or something, where like you feel an emotional connection to
we do see a lot of artists go onto Patreon, but I don't think they do that well because of that reason. They don't know how to stay active. And it's not their fault. They're not content creators. And they do struggle when it comes to that side. But if they can have a world where there's no judgmental, they can just be themselves and be in a group of fans that they feel more connected to rather than they're giving them a service or a product, then I feel like the connection will flow better, and as well as the content and music.
Yeah. And maybe one last question here. So far, how are you finding potential artists for the platform? Are you using social channels and seeing like, hey, maybe this artist sounds great, but they're really not posting much? Like, is social discovery actually a nice way for you to find artists to try and get them over to Steez?
Like I said, a lot of artists are actually not very active on socials, so hitting them up on socials and kind of using social media we found a tough way. We did try to reach out to a lot of artists. We had a lot of artists in our own network that we reached out to. They've offered to join the platform when it releases fully. But the way we're really going about it was really trying to partner with a lot of indie labels, the people that have artists that are ready to grow, but are still finding it difficult to kind of excel to the next stage. And that's going much better for us. And obviously we're importing a lot of artists in bulk rather than just like kind of one by one. But we do have like a lot of referral programs in place where we're happy to revenue share with artists who do refer other artists on board, as well as fans.
Yeah, actually, and that's a good point too. By going through like the indies, you can kind of get more bites of the apple at once rather than like trying to cherry pick individual musicians. Like spend way more time on that side versus going through the indie label side.
Yeah,
I think also you'll find that indie labels tend to have a single kind of like silver line or thread between different artists that they pick, whether it's the genre of music that they make or the type of worlds that they're trying to depict. And targeting those indie labels means that we kind of curate without having to nitpick, but we're still kind of picking different worlds. Something that we've been focusing on, we haven't really discussed it, but we're not necessarily just targeting music on the long term. Today we're targeting music. That's something that is the industry that is closest to our hearts, the one we have the most experience in, and the one that has the highest need for this. In the whole art industry, music is one of the ones that suffers the most from inequalities at that level and at that scale. But more specifically to that, we're actually targeting like hip hop and R&B. We're talking jazz and all of those kind of like very, how do I put it? With the art styles and music that firstly we have grown up with, that have people who look like us and who struggle with the same inequalities and struggles. We've talked earlier about financial, legal literacy. We've talked about just access to certain things, and the reality is that there is a reason why we're only now starting to see black youngins getting into rock. It costs so much and it makes so little money, and that's something that people don't really want to discuss. But to buy a actually good electric guitar, to buy a amp, and to buy a I forgot how it's called, the pedals, that you already have nearly 10K of investment that you have to put in to actually have good stuff. You can put it probably down to 2K, but that makes a huge difference. And so we're really trying to target the places where people, firstly, is the music that drives our life, is the music that I listen to every day. It is the artists that we look out and we see young people who generally make a difference. Their fans love what they're doing. There's a huge connection, but they're not making a living. They are talking in their music about their second job, right? And some of them are signed to labels that already today are closing them in. But the goal in the future is that we grow to kind of capture all of the different art forms. The app already supports that, right? Yeah, all creative forms. The app already supports that. It's more about the kind of like the branding and the targeting, and those are things that we'll adjust over time as we feel like, okay, we've done a good enough a job with music, we've done the impact we want. What's next?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think these days, especially, it's really important to kind of find that early wedge and targeted type of user that you're looking for, especially just because of how much noise and how much is being created all the time with AI. Like, it's really important to find that early wedge because, like you said, you can expand to these other categories as well, but you don't want to start off as everything to everyone, because then
which we tried.
you become nothing to nobody.
Yeah, that's what we tried initially, because we've been going at it, Ravi said, 3-4 years. When we initially started, it was like welcome to everyone. And some of the early artists from our network that initially joined, we had painters, we had theater kids, right? It was really tough to try and build enough of a opinion of the app, enough feedback that made sense and wasn't so conflicting to actually go in the direction we needed to. And obviously marketing and branding, when placements, ads, and all of those, it's tough. If you have to start doing every type of art form, it's nearly impossible. Even doing all of music, we had to kind of narrow down into more targeted, and then hopefully in the future we'll grow again into everything in music, and then everything in art, and then everything in content creation. So yeah.
Amazing. Definitely. And you're on the way. Just gotta build up over time. It'll get there. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. A lot of building. The app, the app is still in the process of finalizing. We are trying to secure a good amount of artists so that whoever comes in, even if it's not necessarily music they like, they have enough choice, right? That's not the easiest one to do. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of months we're in a spot where people who join out of nowhere generally feel like they're welcome, and it's a place that's warm and will help them discover new people to support.
Absolutely. And we're at time, and I want to thank you, Ravi and Ed, for joining me today on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you. Lovely conversation. I'll let you get back to building, and keep growing that base.
No, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Elias. You look after yourself.